15th of last year. December 15th of last year of 2020, the state fire marshal issued a informational bulletin just in regards to the big thing that a lot of restaurants are running into is the use of heaters and anything that warms their tent, so that when they have customers come in, they can still sit down and have outdoor dining. Of course, as we all know, the state went back into shelter in place shortly after this bulletin, but we're still sort of using this guideline to kind of guide where we go and what we will allow versus what we're not allowing inside of tents. So, and that's something I can send to you again, just so that all of the restaurants have that on hand so that they're aware of what we're requiring, whether they have a tent or, some of them may be on flex streets. I don't know if any in the Temescal district are, but I believe
right. Actually, so here, I'll even put this up on the screen for you guys. So this is the one I think you're talking about.
That one.
Yeah, excellent.
So just with that one, some notes I've made on my own, but basically there's four things that are involved in the process in getting this tent or membrane structure is what we call them set up, because some are tents, some are awnings, some are these weird contraptions, but the fire code is just referred to as a membrane structure. But there's a process to getting this approved, and that's what a lot of restaurants are I guess not aware of, is that there is an actual approval process for this. And so part of this in the first blue subheading, it talks about the approval of the actual membrane structure. And so the first step in getting this approved is, of course, if it's over, I believe it's 400 square feet, it has to be inspected by us, by the Office of the Fire Marshal, Oakland Prevention Bureau. We have to go in, inspect it, and then give our approval or denial on, whatever they have erected. And oftentimes when we go out there, I don't know if you want to run across what we're looking for. It's actually on page 3. So the last page of that bulletin, these are the things that we go in, that we look for. And that's what we're going to base our approval or denial on. Of course, there's always weird stances, but this is what we're basing it off.
And that's only if it's over 400 square feet, you said, or?
Right. So I think it's.
And is that total or connected?
No, connected. Do you mean like when?
So a typical, let's say, canopy you buy from a store might be like 10 by 10. So if they're doing more than 4 10 by 10s, does that kind of count, or does it need to be like a 10 by 40 tent?
Right. So it would be total. It would be aggregate, but and it's so. And just to clear this up, I don't know if this makes sense. So when it's 400 square feet or more, that's when we need to have a permit issued from our department. If it's less than that, then you don't need a permit, but we would still like for them to. Sorry, did I lose you guys?
For a second.
No. Okay. Got a weird notification. Anyway, so no, when it's 400 square feet or more, that's when we require a permit from our department. But even if it's under that, there are things that we still want to be done within these tents. And that's on page 3, all the things that we come in and look for. So of course, just like inside of a restaurant, we're going to expect that we see, fire extinguishers. We're going to have, open means of egress. We want to make sure that people are able to get in and out safely without things in their way, or trays or tables, or, whatever it may be. Of course, extension cords, if we do have them out there, of course, because we know it's not tied to an actual building, so there will be extension cords. Normally inside of a restaurant, we'd say no, but that now we're outside, we gotta allow them so that you guys can run things in and out. Um, and so of course, with those extension cords, however, they do have to have the GFCI rating on there so that anything happens, it trips, turns off, we don't get a fire. Um, Another big thing is generators. If we're going to have lighting inside of the tent or anything of that nature, generators are a big thing that, of course, many places want to run right next to the tent, but we do ask that they're at least 20 feet away from um, the tent itself. And then even then, we want it to be gated, fenced in, whatever you got to do. I've seen some really creative things out there, but whatever you have to do to get it done is what we want to see. And of course, one of the bigger things, especially now, uh, that we're seeing these wind events, wind that we've never seen before, even, in Oakland, we see these crazy wind events, 30, 40 mile per hour winds. A big deal will be ensuring that those tents are secured. Um, Whether, and again, you can get creative with this. I've seen some really interesting things out there, and I've showed up and they go, well, this is what I had, and hey, it works for me if I know that if something happens, it's not going to go flying down the street and hit someone or hit a car, or so that's a really big thing, is that we want those tents secured to something heavy, bolt it down to something, attach it to the building. I don't know, whatever it is that also keeps these other factors in mind. We want that done as well.
Good to know. That's great. And for membrane, I am guessing that you're talking about really any sort of overhead thing, whether it's made out of the plastic ribbed sort of siding that folks are using, or some sort of wood thing, that whatever's been kind of approved by Department of Transportation.
Right. So and just a note to that, with membrane structures, it, so there's a couple things too. So one of those things is so with the membrane structure, one of the biggest things that we see oftentimes where we come out and we look at the tent, everything's okay, but then we look up and it doesn't have a state of California seal on the tent. And I thought I brought a picture of it. I didn't, but I'll email it to you. You can distribute that. But it's actually a seal that says something like, California Office of the State Fire Marshal, flame retardant. And so that seal gives us it ensures that that tent has been inspected. It's been inspected by the state and approved by the state to say that, hey, this tent is flame retardant, not flame proof, but flame retardant, where, if there is somehow a flame impingement, that it won't just go like that, where you have a 10 by 10 from Dick's Sporting Goods that's gonna go up in flames in seconds. But that flame retardant seal that you get, that will actually give us the okay, where okay, everything else looks good, you have your seal, you're signed off, you're ready to go, and have folks come in and dine.
And if folks are making their own, is there any sort of commercial product they might be able to spray on, or something that um, is helpful?
At the moment, we're not. That's not something we're willing to delve into at the moment, just because there's so many sprays out there. There's so many companies that claim that, oh yeah, ours is flame retardant, ours does this, ours does that, and honestly, what it comes down to is a testing process. So oftentimes when something does get that seal from the state, it's basically saying that the state has taken, maybe 10 samples from company A, 10 samples from company B, test it both to the same standard. Usually, they do test themselves, but some of the testing goes through uh, underwriter's laboratory, but sometimes we do our own testing as well. But, it says that, we've tested it, we put a flame to it for however long, they have these parameters, but that seal says, yes, we've tested these 10 and all 10 stood up. This product is ready to go, right? But what we're seeing now is a lot of these companies come out with sprays or roll on some sort of adhesive or, oh, hold on one second. It's a motion light. I have to move around or thinks I'm gone. Um, so yeah, so we do see a lot of companies with spray-ons and flame retardant sprays or adhesives, but the problem with those is that they haven't been through the testing process quite yet to get that stamp from the state fire marshal. So at this moment, we're only accepting the tents with that seal on there. And again, they are a little pricey, but being with COVID and everything going on, there are some ways to either, like I said before, get a little creative, or there is money, I believe, and everyone would have to kind of do their research, but there is money in local funds, I guess, city funds, local funds, where they are providing companies or businesses with, some money to at least get that tent erected, so that they can, operate their business. So there is money out there. So I would encourage restaurants in the district and throughout Oakland to just, look for that money. It's there, but you might have to do some digging around.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so you've got your membrane stretcher, your tent, and then kind of got your heaters. And I was wondering if you might be able to go into that.
I was waiting to get there. It's quite the topic. So, of course, we're not in the business of putting businesses out. We're in the business of keeping them open, but keeping them open safely. I've in my own, time off from work, I've gone to restaurants within Alameda County, outside of Alameda County. I live in another county, but and I live in Solano County, but I go to a restaurant or something there, and I look up, and there's a heater that's not quite, not quite been approved, but sometimes we don't catch everything in the fire department, but so you go out, you see these heaters, and I'm like, oh well, I sure hope nothing happens. But so some of those heaters that I've seen, and on page 2 of that bulletin,
Yeah.
where at the top here, these are some of the heaters that you'll see. You'll see this one here usually uses something like a propane tank inside of it in the bottom little cabinet. These are, just like the tabletop ones. And then, these I often see come out of Costco or Samsung, like that. They're like the heat fans or something like that. I'm not quite sure how those, or actually, no, these are the, no, these are actually propane too, actually. But they use a fan sort of mechanism, but you'll see them in outdoor stores and whatever. And so a lot of places will go run and get them for $200 and put them inside of a tent. But the issue with that is that all three of them, all three of them either use an open flame or they use a flammable liquid. And if you just kind of reference back to page 3, it's all at the very, very bottom. it says liquids having a flash point. This is saying things that are not allowed in the tent, but liquids having a flash point below 200 degrees Fahrenheit shall not be stored in any tent nor less than 50 feet from any tent. So just in layman's terms, cutting the science out, a flash point is basically just any sort of liquid that can sit there and I guess collect a vapor over the surface of it that can ignite, right? So it so happens that petroleums, diesels, any sort of LPG tanks, those all under flash points, under 200, which basically is saying they can't be in the tent. And then besides that, open flames in general can't be inside of tents, even if it's, a candle or, some sort of mood light setting that's, using a flame. I know it may be a romantic dinner, but we just can't take that risk with open flames inside of tents, even if they are, flame retardant. But what I have seen though, and this was actually when I went up to Sacramento, so right where this is, this bulletin is coming out of, is um, the heat. I guess the forced air heaters, or and this was like this is a pretty big chain restaurant, so they probably had a little bit more money to do this, but there it was basically a fully, I guess, enclosed tent, if you may, uh, and it had walls on the tent, and they put a forced air heating device inside of the wall, and it blew hot air into the tent so that it warmed the guests. But they had one side open just for ventilation, one, and then for the servers to come in and out. So I have seen that. That is something that we would be able to look at and say, yeah, that's okay to go. Of course, you still have to have your ventilation. You still have to have, means of rest for in and out. So, but yeah, we're definitely definitely not okay with any sort of open flame under the tent or any of those any of these here, the tree thing, the tabletop warmers, definitely not this with the LPG fan heater. So yeah, and I know it's already hard enough to get people to come out during COVID, and then when they do come out, you don't want them to have to be cold and then take off and go home or whatever. But we do still want to keep everyone safe. So these are some alternatives that we've discussed and went over and kind of went back and forth on, and just pretty much this is what we will allow. And yeah, so,
Heating is included in that one. So I know we've talked about that before. I'm wondering if you might be able to kind of delve a little into that.
say that one more time.
The electric heating appliances, since they don't use gas, I was wondering if you might be able to delve a little into that, and kind of what things folks are allowed to use.
Yeah. So if you look a little bit toward the bottom, it has a picture of an example of the electric ones. So we've already talked about the forced air ones, which are great, but usually runs a little bit expensive, anywhere between $1,600 to $3,000 for that. Well, it's a pretty big device, but and then the setup for it. But there are electric, heaters, I guess you can call them. And so with these, same idea. They would have to be, again, we got to come through. We got to check it. Got to make sure it's okay. The biggest thing with this is we want to see that it has, like I mentioned before, a lot of our testing goes through underwriters laboratory where it's sort of a universal stamp that says, yeah, it's been tested, it's okay. And a lot of fire departments use and rely on their testing mechanisms and methods. So we want to make sure it has, and there is another lab, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it has to be certified through UL. It has to, go through their testing, so definitely has to go through Underwriters Laboratory. It also would have to have a tip switch, which you see even in little personal portable heaters, where basically if it gets knocked down, the tip switch at the bottom will it falls over and the tip switch goes off, and then the whole thing just turns off itself. Because back in the day, the 70s, the 80s, the problem that we were seeing was, people would have these in their house trying to save money on energy bills, and it would fall over, and they have stuff all around, and it catches fire, they're asleep, baby's asleep, and now we have a fire and no one's awake. So that's why these tip switches were invented. So we want to see the tip switch, we want to see the UL approval or stamp, and yeah, and then of course just where are you putting this thing? It can't be right on the tent wall. It can't be in the way of egress, of course. So of course, and then we could work schematics once we get there of, okay, where can we place this to where we're not going to impede the flow of traffic, or still catch something on fire, or so things like that we would have to go back over.
Okay. Dan, do you have any questions on that? I know you're writing stuff down.
Yeah, sorry. I was just taking a couple of notes real quick. Lexi, thanks for talking through a bunch of this. So we go the electric route. So our space is very long and very inside. It's very long, skinny, and narrow. It's like 11 feet wide. We're right on Telegraph Ave. And so coming out of our storefront, there's like there's a sidewalk, and we don't have any tables set up on the sidewalk. And then there's the curb cut, and then there's the bike lane, and then there's like the oh, Schiffer, I always mess this up. With bollards, is that what they're called? The little white peggy boys, bollards. And then there's the roof of our parklet where it starts. Right now we have hanging cafe lights. And so we have a junction box that like a licensed electrician put in that's on the outside. And that junction box has the extension cord in it. It's grounded, it's GFI protected. And then we've strung that extension cord in the air so people aren't walking over it as they cross the sidewalk. And it's at least 10 feet off the ground. It's through the tree that's right in front of our parklet. And then it's tied to the roof of the parklet. Basically, all that to say, we've got it super high up there so it doesn't, smack somebody in the head or, take
Right.
somebody's head off while they're riding their bike on the bike path. Should we follow those exact same practices for the extension cords for the electric heating appliances?
Okay. So I'm so I'm sitting here, I'm trying to visualize what the space.
Yeah.
I've driven by it once or twice, but
Yeah.
probably didn't realize everything that was in it. But so what I'm envisioning here would be, through the this junction box that the electrician installed, and then with the heating element hanging from the ceiling, or from the ceiling of the tent, or how's this?
It depends on what elements we get our hands on. We can do either. From what I've been learning online, it looks like the UL certified, the little round boys that sit on the ground that have the fan, those seem to be a little bit more efficient. So we would take the cord, and the cord would run down our parklet, and then we would set the heating element on the ground. Also because if we leave it out at night, it's just going to get stolen, right? And so it's mostly that we just don't want to have to rethread this extension cord every single day. And so the question is, what's the most fire safe way for us to string this cord? Is it to have it on the ground and have people walking over it, have bikes riding over it, or is it to have it running up in the air and through the tree? Again, no heating element will be anywhere remotely close to it, to the tree itself. It'll be at least like 15 feet away from a tree.
Okay. In short, my answer would be, I would honestly just have to see.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of stuff going on over there, and as it's been already, the city has made a big, I don't know, I guess a big allowance when it comes to ADA requirements, if you will, just because it's already like, okay, we know the sidewalk's supposed to be used for walking or, for mobility, but now DOT has eased a lot of that off just because, now we are letting these, hold on. All right. Just because DOT has made a lot of allowances now. So in that way, I would have to see it before I give you an exact answer. But
yeah, sure.
yeah, I would have to see, because then you don't want to block too much of the sidewalk. Then at the same time, are you then putting it in the way of people coming in and out? And then I think something I discussed with you before, Shifra, was about kind of the hanging it from the rafters or whatever. But something that I've come across and I see with that is that two things is that if it is a membrane structure or tent, then you have direct impingement, which is, a no. And then the second thing is that if the rafters are made of, wood, then, it's a flammable material. So with your specific location, I think I would have to come out and just take a look, and that's something we can discuss even afterwards, and get your number and contact info, and we can come out and look at it just to try to work together on it. But yeah, I think I would have to take a look at that one,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
off what kind of device you're gonna try try to shoot for. But yeah.
So if I understand the question correctly, then you were kind of asking about the extension cord and whether it's good to do above or kind of tape down. That's sort of the question is for.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's perfectly. It's just that I don't know how, will the cord extend all the way over and then stop right at the top, and then you gotta hang this thing, or, so that's fine. It could be run over, it can be taped under. It's just as long as it's, taped with the like the yellow and
Okay.
black electrical tape,
The heavy duty gaffer's tape.
so that it's, tripping hazard or that something's there. But no, the cord itself would be fine. And of course, when we come out and do these inspections anyway, that'll be something that we'll look at. And just as I guess I don't know, a word of advice to a lot of the restaurants is that there's actually a really good example of all of this on it's in Old Oakland on 9th and can't remember the cross street, but I don't know if you guys know where the sandwich place is, GB Rado, I don't know how to say it, but yeah, and then there's like a Haitian spot. It's called Miss Ollie's. But if you on that strip, really good example, and that one was actually set up by Uptown Downtown. They do a lot of they've been working with us a lot on flex streets and tents and everything. So you guys would like to look at that, maybe drive by, walk around. I believe they're re-erecting everything in this next week. So it's something to look at, because that one we've gone through the approval process with them. It would be a good idea to maybe look at them. I don't know if they've added heaters at this point. It's probably something they will be looking into, the restaurant that block. So Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to look at. But as far as your extension cord setup, I guess, yeah, no, that would be fine with us.
Okay.
Okay. And then I saw some stuff about making sure that we have no smoking signs posted in the parklet. That makes sense. We'll get those up there. We're closed right now, like closed. We're not doing absolutely anything, but we may reopen at some point here in the next month or so, depending on waiting to see if they shut everything back down. Shifra, would you be able to send us this PDF that we looked at? Could you put that either in the notes or just shoot it to me in an email?
It was linked in the email. And I'm not
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll just dig back in that email. I missed that.
I should have said that was specifically, I was trying to do a good email.
I mean, I think most of us saw it because the updated SSPs and I believe the updated ROPs, both on the Alameda website, like those have been my Bible during all of this. And as soon as the new fire stuff came out that Lexi was talking about, that showed up in the new SSP.
Yeah.
So like I was aware of most of this, which was great, but that's just super comprehensive. So I'll check that email again.
Can you just share it in the chat here? Is the link to that. Yeah.
I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what place do you guys have?
It's called Northlight. We're over on 49th and Telegraph.
Yeah. No, I'm actually the majority of that district of restaurants and buildings and whatever is over there. For the most part, I'm actually responsible for. It's my district. So
cool.
like I said, I could have totally driven by your guys' place, but I'm normally very tunnel vision. Got to get to where.
Oh yeah. Well, and on that street, that's probably for the best.
Yeah.
You're not
normally very
taking a look at anything that's happening on the sides rather than making sure you don't get into an accident.
Right.
Oh, I did have one other question. Lexi, are you involved in so I mean we're considering, and I've talked to Shifra about this, we're considering trying to do the permanent encroachment permit. Is that something that also will be part of are you part of, is y'all's department part of the approval process for that?
Yes. Yes and no. And the only reason I say that is because, again, a lot of this is new, and then it's new, but it's not so new. It's almost a year old at this point. But at the same time, because we've had so many hangups and, we'd have to stop right when it was, okay, we're in the swing of things, we'd have to stop because, the state would get shut down again. And then it's almost like starting right back over from scratch. But I did take a look at some of the encroachment initiatives that they've been kind of pushing for, I guess. We are involved to the degree of the permanent encroachment. We are involved to the degree of majority of what we're involved in is ensuring that the street or wherever it is that you're encroaching, I guess, that we have space to move our trucks through. That's kind of
the Flex Street things.
Right. But so it's part of the Flex Street plus the encroachment. And so it's a little bit of everything. And I keep bringing up Flex Streets. I know not all of these are Flex Streets, but a lot of that banks off this bulletin and what we do. But the biggest thing with that is we needed, I think, what do we need? I think it's 20 feet worth of a street so that the truck can get through. So, like I said, part of it we are involved, but a lot of it we're not. When it comes to the encroachment thing, most of that's DOT. But but it's not to say that we won't, stop by and, look around and say, that's not going to work for us. Or, hey, can you duplicate this over at the next site? Or, Shipra, I guess that would be you. But, can you guys, encourage this restaurant to duplicate what this is doing right here. And that's why I encourage, some of the other places to look at the old Oakland site, just because that one's like, it's gold as far as what we're looking for. DOT's happy, we're happy, police are happy about it, so it just, it works, and of course that street is wider than a lot of places, but it's the ideal situation. Of course, there will be those times where, we have to come in and just look at it and, figure something out if that
Absolutely.
works.
Well, so I mean, this is maybe something that hasn't been brought on yet, but the city Department of Transportation is reopened their permanent parklet program. So it's not the flex permit; it's a different permit. That would be kind of like a permanent minor encroachment versus kind of like that Frex Street, a temporary encroachment. But I think we're going to be probably exploring what that means in the future. I think for a couple different restaurants.
Yeah. So I know there's one restaurant in particular that I have seen with the parklet. I think it's like a bar and barbecue sort of restaurant, but they use the backside of their building. It's a really small parklet, but they use it. And in that instance, I can foresee them kind of keeping it. I mean, it's a pretty nice outdoor space if you kind of move some things around and get everything set in place. And yeah, so we're not really much on that team, I guess, right now. Just as there's nothing that we need to get to in the way, whether it be an FDC or a hydrant or, any of the stuff that we go out there and play with. Yeah, I mean, as long as that's not blocked or in the way, we don't really have much, I guess, say so in what goes on in that realm. But again, it's kind of a new process and figuring this whole thing out. So I guess what it would really come down to is uh, site visits. Let us know, what you need, and we'll try to get out there and make something work where all of the departments are at least somewhat happy. But unfortunately, we end up being the happiest of all of them. We usually get what we want compared to others, but
that makes sense.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think we'll definitely be coming to you. I think with a couple different restaurants when that becomes the thing. But I'm sort of guessing that the rules that guide temporary parklets will likely be continued on if they are permanently. So those guidelines will sort of track.
right.
Maybe with the heaters or something, there's something to be done about ways to make things that are more permanently installed, on the rafters or something, work with some sort of barriers between the heaters and the wood or some sort of thing that might be more expensive but more permanent, perhaps.
Right. Well, like we have the sun pack. We have a patio in the back that has a retractable roof. It's much like the one at Arthur Max, if you've seen it. We have the same patio that Cholita Linda does as well. The building owner put it in. It got approved by fire. It got approved by everybody. And then when we went to open, we installed these sun pack heaters that are gas line, metal fed, bracketed in, and again, those got approved by health and by fire before we, passed our opening. And this was like 2 years ago when we opened. And those are an open flame, and they're gas, and they cook. I mean, the BTUs are high, but they're like built. If this is the wooden wall, they're bracketed, and then they come out proud off of that a good bit. And then the backside of the whole thing is pretty protected. The side that faces the wood, the backside is pretty protected, and then they're angled down, onto the guests. So I mean, it does seem like you all have a precedent for, something like that. If we were gonna, the big thing is I have no idea where we would put that gas line. to get it to go out there. We're certainly not going to run this off of propane tanks, but if we were to make this thing permanent, if there is a way that we can do something like the sun packs that, again, I'd be nervous. It's telegraph 2 in the morning that somebody doesn't just pull up a truck, you know what I mean? Grab a couple power tools and then take those, and those are like $3,000 heaters. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of the eye. I mean, every single day, it's usually me when we were open, but our staff, you know, or me are sweeping the parklet, pulling out all the tables, pulling out all the chairs. And like, honestly, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. So if we, even if we make this parklet thing permanent, there's a high likelihood that we just don't heat it, period.
Right.
Our electrical bills are already through the roof. So I don't really want to pay for electrical heaters just to get another like 10 guests out there on a cold November night. So our parklet may be something that we just use on the nice days, and it's there. And if you want to come play, we'll come wait on you. But otherwise, we're not really gonna, like, you know, hope you brought some hand warmers and a scarf.
Yeah. That's a good thing to know, I think, going forward for folks who are thinking permanent, that there is an element of what if things get stolen. And I'm wondering about the cost, and also your electrical bill. Those things are not cheap, even if you're talking like maybe it's a slightly cheaper heater, if it's an electric one versus a gas. It still is in the rafters that you have to, you know, get inspected by fire, but someone could also unplug that and so easily steal it.
Right.
Oh yeah, and I actually have been to Arthur Max there, and you're right, it works there. There, it's like you said, it's been a precedent set, and there that sort of setup works. The only thing, like when you mentioned just the security of it, someone can pull up a couple screws and they're out of there with your stuff. The only thing at Arthur, they're enclosed, so they can keep that. And yeah, it's I'm sure, like I said, one of these restaurants will have to come up with something inventive that everyone ends up, oh, that's a good idea. I'll take that idea and tweak it to our place. Yeah, so I think it will take some digging around, looking at other restaurants, seeing what they're doing, of course. And, of course, this bulletin that we have, kind of adopted. Of course, it's not the say all be all. Of course, it's pretty black and white as to what we want, but at the same time, there are some things that the code does allow for us to kind of give a little wiggle room, because a lot of times you'll see in the code it says you must blah blah blah, or as approved by the fire official. So it's not that it's so rigid that you have to be within these parameters, but if we can think of something inventive and new, or that can work for you guys, that's just a little bit of a tweak, then yeah, we're willing to look at it. We're willing to see it and try to work with you guys. Like I said, we're not in the business of keeping you guys from operating your businesses, but we just want to do it safely and figure out the best way to go about doing that. And anyone here is more than willing to give advice or try to help you think of something. So yeah, just let us know.
Thank you. I did have one quick question, I think, at the end here. I was just reading through the PDF real quick, and I had a question on the flammable vegetation, where it says flammable vegetation, materials, and combustible waste is not permitted within 50 feet of tent or membrane structure. Like, I look on Instagram, I see in other cities, somebody's got like a festive stick display or like holiday wreaths or something, like inside their parklet because they've tried to make it all cute. And like 100%, I understand that a wreath is probably not the best idea. If we want to add greenery though, like actual living plants in dirt that are watered, is that considered flammable vegetation?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we can't get too. I don't know. I guess it's going to be kind of difficult to make the spaces as pretty as we might like. Um, it's going to kind of be it's gonna look a little rough, but I mean, at least people get to sit in there and have a warm dinner. But yeah, pretty much any vegetation is. I think it's funny. It says flammable vegetation, but I mean, for the most part, it's all.
Nope.
Oh, there we go.
Lost her.
All right. Well, Shifa, thanks. I mean, that was the last question I had. So
Yeah, maybe she'll come back in a second.
pop back in. Okay.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, they're coming back in.
Lexi? Are you back, Lexi? Possibly. I do know that I have seen, I think, prior to the pandemic, I saw parklets that didn't have roofs that had greenery in them. And, like Sabrosa's parklet certainly has a lot of plants. So that may be somewhat of a determining factor. Trying to think on kind of permanent parklets. I'm not sure if I've seen any permanent parklets that were in the prior program with the city that had with a roof. That may be
right. I feel like permanent, all I really saw was cheese boards, right, up in Berkeley for Collective, and then the one by East Bay Spice Company, which is also probably up in Berkeley, up by the university, that little cocktail bar.
Oakland has a decent amount on MLK, right, south of 40th Street. They have a roof on theirs. I don't think I see any greenery though. Okay, so you were saying kind of, Lexi, no greenery before you cut out.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's just so many things that can go wrong. That's just another something to have to worry about. So yeah, typically we're just kind of no with the greenery.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. I know you're kind of breaking up and we're probably a little out of time.
No.
But thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, Lexi. And Den, thank you for coming and representing.
Yeah, for sure.
Questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
All right.
I'll follow up with you, Lexi, see if we have any other questions from restaurants if they email.
Thanks, Shifa.
All right.